on the Watchdog.
All right, we're back. You're listening to Your Wheeling, no two ways about it, here on the Watchdog. I'm Chad Thalman, Vice Mayor of the City of Wheeling, in the studio with co-host Mayor Glenn Elliott. We were just joined by guest Commissioner Reed Amos, the Commissioner of the Mountain East Conference. This is the conference that West Liberty and Wheeling University play in, and also Dave Flatley, the Director of Marketing for the Health Plan being the title sponsor for the upcoming MEC tournament that's going to take place in downtown Wheeling. But, Mayor, first time back in several weeks. Your wife just gave birth a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Harrison Reed Elliott.
Yes. What a whirlwind these past couple weeks have been. It's been, I waited a little bit longer in life to come to this point of parenthood, but it has just been all-encompassing, so rewarding. We're only 2.5 weeks into it, but both Harrison and my wife Cassandra are doing well. He's sleeping in slightly longer increments now. It was about 2-hour increments. Now it's maybe a little bit like 3-hour increments. We're hoping at some point to get to 6 and 7-hour increments, but it's been great. Each day you notice something different in him. He's obviously still a newborn, still trying to make sense of the world, but just each day you see a little bit different, and really looking forward to what's coming. I have so many friends on Facebook who have kids, who've had kids in the last month, so I look online and I'm looking at pictures now, and I'm always drawn to the pictures of babies and seeing, I can almost tell what stage they are now just from looking at their expressions and everything else. So it's been great. It's going to be an adjustment for us. We live in an old building that was never probably designed for a human habitation, let alone for a young family. So we've been trying to make it as hospitable as we can. The dog's been great with them too. We were worried, is the dog gonna? The dog's I think he feels a little jealous right now that he's not the center of attention, our dog Minka, but. He's been great with them. It's just been wonderful, and we're looking forward to getting him out and about. He's still within the 2 or 3 month sort of age range where your immune system isn't really fully developed. So we're going to be keeping him in mostly out of crowds until then. But and obviously there still is a pandemic going on as well. But hopefully we're looking forward to getting him out and about here in the spring and summer, and really just enjoying every day with him. So it's been great.
Mayor, back to city business. We had a development committee meeting last night. We had two restaurant owners come in. The Cheese Melt, which has basically been a food truck, they're going to be opening in a brick and mortar building in Warwood. So that's an exciting development. And there's also a new restaurant, Carlito's Soul Food, that's going to be opening in North Wheeling. That was the old Uncle Pete's and Big Shot Bob's building. Has a beautiful deck around back. But that was some exciting news and some nice development for the city of Wheeling that we talked about last night.
Seeing two new restaurants on the agenda was great. Of course, Warwood for a long time, I think, has really needed a sit-down type of restaurant. This is going to be a great opportunity in Warwood. The Cheese Melt's got a long-standing a track record here as a food truck. I think he has a pretty loyal following. I forget how many thousands of Facebook followers he had, but I certainly think he has a following. Anytime he shows up anywhere, he gets a crowd. So it's going to be a challenge probably transitioning from the food truck to the brick and mortar type model, but if he can get that loyal following to come there, if he can, sort of build up a new customer base in the Warwood community where I believe he lives, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's going to be a really good fit. And that place on Warwood Avenue there has been vacant for many, many years. The restaurant used to be in there. I forget the name of it. I think the sign's still hanging on the outside. I forget the name.
You know what? I've lived in Warwood since 2006, and I'm not sure that there's ever been anything in there since I've lived in Warwood.
Yeah, so it's going to be a really nice addition to Warwood. And then Carlito's Soul Kitchen, is the name of the Soul Kitchen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's going to be in the spot where Uncle Pete's used to be. So many people, I not only loved Uncle Pete's restaurant, but loved that location because of the deck overlooking the Ohio River and back. People really did. I can think of many times when I'd go there just because it was a nice night. I wanted to sit on the back deck and overlook the river while I ate. And, so I think it starts from a very promising situation of that great location. And the question is the food going to be great? We don't know, but I certainly think so. Jeremy, I forget his last name, Alvarado, the owner has been very successful with Rachel's on 16th here now for the last couple of years on 16th Street. And, I have every reason to believe he's going to succeed there. So I know he's put a lot of money and time into it. The sign looks great. The building looks great from the outside. I know he just said last night they redid the rear deck, which, of course, is a critical piece of that structure right there of that facility. So I'm looking forward to seeing that coming. I think he said a target open date would be July, but it may slip into August, and I hope he could get it there sooner possible. I mean, as soon as he can, because as you mentioned last night, people really want to take advantage of that deck in the summer months. So two good announcements yesterday. So fingers crossed we have more coming. I know some other ones that are being planned as well. So we are far short of in this community of really reaching the potential for all the built-up demand for places to go out and experience and eat. And I think there's a lot of room for more restaurants and bars and other type of experiential-based economies to really take advantage of this right now. So it's good to see people moving forward.
Yeah, it's really an exciting time in the city of Wheeling. There's a lot going on. And Mayor, as a council, we're going to have some decisions to make soon. The city received some money from the federal government, COVID-related money, American Rescue Plan. And the city council needs to decide exactly how some of that money is going to be spent. You had mentioned that you wanted to have some sort of a workshop where people may make some suggestions to council and bring up some of their ideas as to what the needs are in the community.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last night at a budgetary work session, but just, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. The federal government basically has given the city of Wheeling last year and this year a total of about $29 million. And that money, it comes with a lot of strings and restrictions, but it's basically, our annual city budget, if you take out the water and sewers in the $35–36 million range. So it's basically an entire year of a city budget we have of money that we can spend on different projects that right now is unaccounted for. We have spent some for, we did some fee, bonuses for city employees who got vaccines. We did grants for outdoor dining, but that's really a small piece of this money we've used so far. Most of it we've just been sitting on waiting for the final rules to come out, and they came out in December from the U.S. Treasury. And the final rules have a lot more clarity and a little bit more leeway than the initial rulings did, so that's good. But the challenge for us is we have to spend this money by 2020, by 2024. So how do we spend this money in a way in the next year and a half that is both efficient and that leads to more investment and that is equitable and fair across the community? And of course, we have 7 members of council, and I'm guessing we have 7 different ideas on the best way to spend that money within council. City staff has some ideas as well that they've shared with us. And I'm sure members of the public have ideas as well. And, in fact, some of the best ideas may be those we haven't even thought about yet because someone in the public's thinking of them. The best way to do this, I've looked around to see what other cities have done, is, I thought we could have just a public session where people come and share their ideas. The problem is with doing that is there's so many specific rules for how the funds can be spent. I think the best use of everyone's time is to ask people to kind of fill out a form where they walk through the list of requirements for how you spend that money. So I've asked the city manager last night to come up with a form, hopefully online form for people to fill out. If they have an idea for how to spend this money, the form will walk them through. Does it match this? Does it qualify this? There's different things where you can and cannot spend the money on. Some of the spending on the funds is limited based on the census tract where the spending is made. If it's in what's called a qualified census tract, there's a lot more leniency. And qualified census tracts, basically in the city of Wheeling, I believe it would be Wheeling Island, downtown, and East Wheeling. And I think South Wheeling may qualify as well as a QCT. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that Warwood, Elm Grove, and parts of Woodsdale do not qualify as a QCT. That doesn't mean you can't spend money there, but it's a little bit more restricted in where you can spend these funds. So obviously the overarching goal of the money is to address the pandemic and to help businesses sort of recover from that. But I'm looking at it beyond that. This is an opportunity for us to really think not only in terms of spending money on projects in the short term, but spending money in ways that will result in sort of greater investment down the road and have a multiplier effect. And it's going to be a challenge for us to think through, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of different competing ideas, and I look forward to the conversation. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to, this is a lot of money to spend in a relatively short period of time, and it's a good problem to have, but it is going to be a challenge just to make sure we find projects and find, contractors where we can, contractors are probably, we're not the only city, nor is West Virginia the only state that's getting a lot of money from this federal program. So all these contractors are going to be kind of competing for the same projects now. So we have to make sure we can get this money spent and get projects completed in the next 18 months. It's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, if anyone out there has any comments or questions, any suggestions, feel free to give us a call, 304-214-1600. Mayor, the other thing I wanted to bring up and briefly mention, the Washington Avenue Bridge was recently reopened. It had closed for several weeks. At some point in time, that bridge is going to need to be replaced. I believe it was originally installed, built in the 1940s, if I'm not mistaken.
I want to say 38 or maybe 41. It was built during the Franklin Roosevelt administration because I believe his name is on the plaque on the west side of the bridge. But yeah, so it was. I think it was built during the WPA program or whatever. Like a lot of bridges across the country were built, with federal money back during the post-Great Depression years. But like a lot of bridges of that age, it needs a major refurbishing, and you saw what happened in Pittsburgh here a couple weeks ago now. That's something we didn't want to take that risk. That's why we did some short-term fixes on that bridge, but hopefully the state project to completely replace the bridge is still moving forward for the next year or so, and we can get that bridge replaced with one that'll last another 50 years.
So that bridge is a city-owned bridge. Fortunately, the state of West Virginia DOH has agreed to pay 80% of the cost to replace that bridge. I want to say the cost to replace it was in the ballpark of $8 million. The previous city council, Mayor, that you and I were both on, we set aside our 20%, which is over $1 million. So that money has been set aside, although West Virginia DOH has taken the lead on designing the bridge and replacing the bridge. That project probably won't happen for a few more years. It's my understanding they wanted to get the interstate out of the way and maybe even the suspension bridge done before they tackle that bridge. But we also, the bridge was just closed for basically a short-term fix. About $300,000 was invested in that bridge to keep it viable for a few more years until it's completely replaced. I know it's an important artery in that section of Wheeling. I know the neighbors and Councilman Ty Thorgate, who represents that area, we're all very excited to see it reopen.
I don't forget Councilman Jerry Sklavonakis. I think they both represent that area. And I know Jerry's listening because
the line is right there. So yes, Jerry, I know that
I know
is also
Jerry's
his
listening,
area.
and Jerry would be very mad if you didn't mention it. So I'm just saying. I did want to mention one thing, and I know we have a little bit of time left, but yesterday I asked Michelle Rajanis, our city marketing specialist. One way maybe we could spruce this show up a little bit is throughout the week to have people submit written questions to her, either online or through email or otherwise, for us to address here on the show. And she's going to be doing that here effective. I think she's going to put out a post on Friday and then be soliciting questions going forward for the next foreseeable future. So hopefully people, if you listen to the show, if there's some kind of either big simple issue or obscure issue or just a random question about something, but you don't feel like calling in, but you still like the answer to it, you just send an email to Michelle, and she'll put the information up on the city's Facebook page, how best to get the information to her. But we're going to take some time out of each show and try to address those questions that we can. I told her that, of course, pretty much any question is going to be fair game. We're not going to respond to trolling comments. I'm sure we'll get some of those, which I think every city Facebook post that goes up, there's 2 or 3 folks who just jump in immediately and start trolling it, and we don't really pay attention to those. But any serious question about city business, on issues big or small, we will respond to the best way we can, and I think it's something that can make the show a little bit more informative for folks. I always hear from folks that listen to this show. I don't know what our audience is, but I certainly appreciate people listening. I appreciate the Watchdog here for giving us this opportunity once a week to come and talk about city affairs. I think it's a good public service, and we certainly do our best to keep people tuned in with what's going on in city government.
Lola, we're talking about bridges, and I know you live on Wheeling Island. Obviously, the suspension bridge is an important piece of Wheeling Island. Have you seen progress yet on the suspension bridge? I know I've driven past a few times. I see some fencing up, but I have not actually seen anyone working on it.
I think they're under it.
Okay.
They blocked off part of the new park, and they had green fencing up there for a minute. I don't think it's there now, but I think they're looking underneath it. The same with on this side of the river, the trail is shut down at the bridge because I think that's the main problem. They've got to get underneath, check out what those cables look like, and see if they can be rehabbed or replaced. So I think that's what they're doing. But this is just funny. All this time, the bridge has been closed down. 2.5 years at least, all of a sudden, there are now signs up on the island, suspension bridge detour. It's
It
like,
only took 2.5 years, huh?
geez.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe we know.
Yeah.
We should go that way, but I just thought that was rather amusing. But yeah, they're working on it. It's the work underneath, the important stuff, really, that I think they're working on now.
Yeah, that bridge has been closed for over 2 years after a large bus, which exceeded the weight limit, went over the bridge. I believe West Virginia DOH is investing, I want to say $17 million into that bridge, where you're still unsure if it will ever open up to cars. But we appreciate the large investment that West Virginia DOH is investing in what is probably the most historical, significant structure in the city of Wheeling.
Yeah, it's obviously it's something we've been very tuned in on, and it's a big priority for us to keep that bridge there first and foremost. And the conversations we've had with DOH in the past couple of years have been about the best way. Whether or not it reopens to vehicles is an open question, but my urging them or my comments to them has been simply, if you do reopen it to traffic, which I think is in the best long-term interest of the bridge, just keeping it on our transportation grid so it is viewed as a piece of a road network and not as a monument, which is probably going to put it somewhere else on the sort of priority schedule than if it's an active bridge. But my concern is not that we rely on enforcement to keep the big vehicles off, but we actually do something to modify the design and the access points to that bridge that keep the big vehicles off it without relying on enforcement. One of the things we heard was, well, why weren't the police there, enforcing the bridge? Well, we only have, X amount of city officers who are on duty at any one moment, and having somebody stationed on the bridge is not the most efficient use of time. I think we have a caller here, Lola.
Yes, it's Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Mayor, I have a question.
All right.
Back in 2020, that $2 or $4 a week user fee you have to do if you work in the city of Wheeling?
Yes.
We know all about it.
We know all about it now. Yes.
Well, I just got a question. You've been trying to figure out what you're going to do with the $29 million, and you rewarded your employees with an incentive to get the shot.
Mm-hmm.
The people that, I think your final number went down because people weren't working. So wouldn't you maybe reward the people that's been working and paying that fee with some of that $29 million you have? Or maybe we could stop the user fee and just maybe use some of that $29 million to support the city.
It's a great thought, Dan. I do believe if you read the regulations on how you can spend those funds, it cannot be used to offset tax decreases. So cities or states can't cut taxes and then use the funds from the rescue plan to fill in the gap. That would be an impermissible use of those funds. And actually, I believe it was Senator Manchin who pushed for that and got that included in the final bill last year. So that is part of the bill. That doesn't mean, though, that we're not looking for ways to give back and to help. We're especially looking at small businesses that really felt the brunt of it, restaurants, small retail shops that really have paid the big brunt of the cost of COVID here. We're looking at ways to help them, and I can assure you that we're going to be, whatever comes out of our final decision here, there's going to be a package of funds that's going to be targeted towards small business.
Okay, well, I got a good idea. You have 5 council seats or 4 council seats?
7 total if you include the mayor.
Okay. Well, I live in Sclavanaugus and Ty Thorngate's area, so could we just have one big steak fry with some of that money?
I'm going to guess that's probably not a permissible use of that money, but you know what? I like the idea, and we'll certainly look into it.
We'll mention it to Jerry and Ty that a steak fry is always a good idea. Until
thank you for your time. Yes.
Until I started getting involved in local politics, I'd never really been to steak fries. But then when you run for office, you realize that steak fries are just such a West Virginia thing. So you can never go wrong with a steak fry. So maybe we'll try to plan one. I don't know if we can use the rescue plan funds, but maybe finding another way. And Dan, I always appreciate your calls.
And you know what, Dan, one thing, and I do want to add, is one of the things that we can spend that money on is underground infrastructure, water and sewer. So we are looking at making some investments in our water and sewer systems, which would hopefully down the road mean that we didn't have to have a future rate increase. So that is one thing we're looking at, and one thing that I think we're moving forward on here in the next several months. Mayor, you haven't been here for 2 weeks. What else do you have for us?
You know, I was, as I sometimes do, I was sort of perusing my favorite Facebook page called Memories of Wheeling yesterday, and there was a post, and I'm trying to find it right now, if I can, by Andrew Hall. It was a post by Andrew Hollis. I'm trying to look for it here.
You know what, I don't think I know Andrew, but I do follow that Facebook page, and I believe he's somebody that posts some really great pictures from time to time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he's involved, I believe, with the bicycle shop out in Elm Grove and a Wheelcraft, and he posted a list of all the new businesses in Wheeling since 2015.
I did see that,
and it was
yeah.
probably the most positive, optimistic, encouraging post on that page I've seen in years. Because usually that page is, well, someone will post a picture of something, and then it's a list of people saying, "Oh my God, the
I wish we still had horns."
I
yes.
wish we still had horns and gimbals, and you can't go to the Stone and Thomas T-Room anymore. Life's terrible, and that's what that page sometimes can be. I shouldn't be so harsh on the page, because the page is a source of great historical information, historical photographs, and I've learned a lot from that page and garnered a lot of good information from it. But it can be filled with a lot of what I would call negative Nancy folks, and some of these folks, I think the majority of folks who are the most negative are people who grew up here but then left and then still tune in and just, talk about Wheeling back in 1958 and how terrible it is now, or must be now. But this was the most optimistic, positive, cheery, just aspirational post on that page I've seen in years. And I want to just thank Andrew. I don't really know Andrew personally, but I want to thank him for that. I did chime in as well to clarify a couple questions that were raised in that thread, but it made me think. He had moved here in 2015 and focused on all the new business since 2015, and really it's a long list, so I encourage folks to go check out that page and just read the list of all the investment we've seen since 2015. And I just made the point, not only has there been investments by a lot of new businesses, but you look at the building stock. We're sitting down in downtown Wheeling. In 2015, a lot of the future of a lot of the buildings around us right now was in some bit of question. And then, in the last couple of years, we've seen major investments and major planned investments in a lot of buildings, like in Wheeling Pit, the Bridge Tavern, the McClure Hotel, the Scottish Rite. All these buildings, 10 years ago, the future of these buildings wasn't really certain. And so there's a lot of new investment. The Fort Henry Club is another one, and I'm sure I'm missing.
The building Mugshots is in.
The Mugshots building one. We took a lot of grief on city council because that building had been slated to be torn down. We made the somewhat controversial move to save it and to throw a little bit of money towards it. I'd help save it. Now it's housing a brand new business in Mugshots, and hopefully the other building next to it will be housing a restaurant soon as well. The Barry Spy building is in new ownership and with a new lease on life. We just sort of inked a deal a couple weeks ago with a Pittsburgh firm to work on the 1400 block buildings on Market Street where the adult video store is. I look at all these things, and yes, do we still have problems in the city? Yes. Do we still have some missing pieces? Yes. But are things getting better? I think, even though I may be a biased observer, I think by any metric that you look at it, over the last 10 years, things have gotten better here, and I'm really excited about the future.
Well, Mayor, I hear the music coming on, so that means the show's winding down. Welcome back, from your 2-week vacation.
It's great to be back. I'm going to go take a nap now.
Well, you're listening to Your Wheeling, no two ways about it, here on the Watchdog. We'll be back next week. Stay tuned.